All right, all right. Good evening, everyone. Once again, this is Sam Pierre. I am serving as one of the moderators, and I'm also going to be giving opinions tonight as we have this conversation about who's representing us, the black man, who speaks for the black man. And I'm really excited about having this conversation. This is not any official organizations or anything. This is just me and my four close friends, just having a conversation. So I'm really excited that we're able to make this happen. We've been trying to do this for almost 2 months now. We've finally been able to do this. So I'm excited and I'm ready to go. First person I want to bring up is Jeff Lindor, who's going to serve as the other moderator as well. Jeff, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? I'm looking forward to this station.
Yeah, it's looking good, man. So, Jeff, you was out there protesting today, man.
Yeah, I was with Borough President Adams, and we were, we curated about 100 to 150 Black businessmen, and, we were protesting in suits and also speaking about what we want for our community.
Wow, that's great, man. All right, well, I look forward to hearing more about that. And we're going to switch it off because, remember, it's just a conversation. The four of us have been talking about this forever, so we're going to make it happen. Next up, we're going to bring Gregory Mellon. We're going to bring Greg Mellon, who is our psychologist. He's all of our psychologists. He's actually the trained psychologist in the group.
I'm a school psychologist, and I don't get paid enough for this. That's a fact.
That's right. I mean, good, but you're still our psychologist, and we still love you. So, Greg, man, how you doing, brother?
How are you, everybody? My name is Gregory Mellon. I'm good, man. My name is Gregory Mellon. I'm a school psychologist here in New York City. I'm also really happy to represent New York City school psychologists on the board of the New York Association of School Psychologists. So, I've been trying to make this happen for a little while, but I'm really happy that we're here now.
Wonderful, man. All right, great. Last but not least, we're gonna bring in Brandon Gibson, who was on the IG, and we had some interesting day, man. So, Brandon, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. Let's get it in. I'm ready to get right to the meat of it.
All right, man. So here we go. For all our viewers that are out there, just so that you guys understand, this is a conversation about who is speaking for the Black men when it comes to social justice, economic justice, and policy in America. So I think I'm gonna jump right into the first question. I'm gonna ask a few questions. We're all gonna ask a few questions. We're not gonna be super formal. This is four friends that's on a IG chat, and we talk every single day. But we're gonna give the
we just got very, very personal just now with one of our friends. We're not gonna go into that. You know what
I mean? We definitely did get really more personal than we needed. So you know what? We can keep a level of formality, but we're bros, right? We are able to be free with ourselves. We talk how we need to talk, when we need to talk privately. Let's give the world a snapshot of our group chat. Give the world a snapshot of our group chat. You know what I mean? So you know what? Let's jump out. Who wants to jump first, right? Jeff, right? What when you went out and you was protesting today, right? What made you do that, bro? Why?
Well, because I think that it's really important that we go and represent ourselves and represent who we are, right? So Borough President Adams reached out to me and a couple of other gentlemen, and he was saying, hey, you know what, let's hear from the businessmen, and let's have a curated protest on economic development, and let's get media there, and let's lend our voices so that we state what we want, what our ask is, right? And I'm not normally a protester, and I value protesting, so much. But when he told me that specifically and what the goal and the need was, I just jumped right on it, man. So, it's important that we represent our issues and represent, what we want and understand what our ask is. So that's what really made me go out today.
All right, dope. So let's jump right in, right, guys? What is going on? What's going on with the Black man? What is our issue with what's going on right now? What is the Black man's issue? We're gonna keep it real. really real, like how we do in the chat. We're keeping it a stack. What is the black man's issue, right? Greg.
No, not me first. Oh. Like, what is the issue? Or,
yo, let's tell the people, man. Let's tell the people. All right, fine. You want to be shy, Brandon?
I think it's simple, man. I think it all boils down to one concept. They gave us freedom, but they didn't give us justice. That, to me, is the biggest issue. We fought for freedom. We had to die for freedom from chattel slavery. It wasn't just white people fighting for the liberation of enslaved Africans in this country, but it was those same enslaved Africans fighting that fight. And then once we won that fight, we were not awarded the justice we thought we would get along with the freedom. So they're okay with us not being in literal chains, but they just decided not to free us and give us the economic, political, socioeconomic justice that should have come along with freedom. And that's like we're still fighting today. If we had justice, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Wow. Jeff, add to that.
Yeah, like I think that once you give a community specific access to resources, then that community is no longer dependent upon you, right? So Reverend Sharpton, during the funeral of George Floyd, his whole sermon was "Get your knee off our necks," right? And he symbolized that by not only physically but symbolically. So America has had their knee on our necks since the beginning of time, in a sense, right? Since the beginning of this country. So like to echo Brandon's point, I would say like I agree 100%, right? So it's like lip service is great, but now I'm happy to be seeing some actual changes as opposed to protesting.
Greg.
I've been really shocked at what's been happening all week long in the news. And to kind of touch on what Brandon said in terms of freedom, so many people they're accustomed to the word racist, they're accustomed to the word I think this week people across our country got a really good idea of what systematic racism is. Racism that is embedded in, fellas, the governor of Minnesota, the attorney general, the two mayors, the police commissioner, all got on live TV. And there's usually some pundits, there's usually some defending going on. There's usually a little bit of, race baiting. All of them got on television and said, I don't know what's going on with our police department. Like, they had no answers and they had no support for it whatsoever. For you as a governor and commissioner, your heads of state, to literally say, we don't understand. We feel like our entire police department is compromised. Have you ever seen that in history?
Never.
On live TV,
Never.
I said this.
Never.
I've never seen this. Never seen this.
Never.
Keith Ellison has a huge job ahead of him, but it goes back to what Brandon said. Freedom is understanding the different kinds of oppression and how systematic racism is embedded in our social structures.
Wow. All right. So that was good, guys. We did the nice and clean and, educated version, right? Where everybody knows we're educated now. They get it, right? But I want to know what's going on with Raekwon. What's Raekwon's problem, right? Because I know what Dexter's problem is. Thank you, gentlemen, right?
Especially Jeff.
But I want to know. Yeah, you know, thank you for telling me with Dexter's problem. Yeah, I want to know what the hell is going on with Raekwon right now. What's going on with Raekwon's mind, right? What opportunities and choices does Raekwon have, right? How's Raekwon feeling? Like, let's let the world know, because at the end of the day, all three of us deal with Raekwons every day, no matter what, no matter how many degrees we have, no matter what fancy jobs and fancy titles we have, we all three have a dude that's texting us, yo, I got in trouble. I need you to pick me up from the precinct. Yo, cash at me $100 because, yo, my car broke down and I ain't got no money to put gas in it. Let's keep it real. All three of us have dealt with that. Yo, I got into a situation. I was at the park with a shorty, you know what I'm saying? And then the cops came and they grabbed me. All three of us have dealt with that situation, right? Let's deal with, let's have a conversation. Let's tell the world what's happening with that young dude. Or for some of us, a dude that was maybe supposed to give us a video, but it's been a year and they can't give us the video because they're in and out of jail. When you gave them that opportunity, you gave them an opportunity to do the video for you, but now they're in and out of jail, and now you don't have a video for your company because you went with Raekwon, right? Or Brandon, you gave Raekwon a shot to work on one of your real estate projects, and you haven't seen him in 2 weeks after you paid him because you wanted to give him a shot. You know, right?
Listen, man, and Jeff and I have those stories. There's I said to Jeff that we had the same thing happen, but you know what? In many cases, yes, at some point you have to take responsibility for what your actions are and all of that. However, there's a thing that we learned this semester called epistemic injustices. And epistemic injustice.
You gotta bring Harvard. Why you gotta bring Harvard?
No. You gotta hear it though. No.
You gotta bring Harvard here.
When you start talking about something being epistemic, it is the study of knowing. How did you come to know something? So the people who do epistemic studies, they'll study how did this person or how did these people come to know the sky is blue? How did you come to know that up is up and down is down? How did there's a whole area of study of how people come to know something. And so part of epistemic injustice would be hermeneutical injustice. Hermeneutical injustice is there's no word to define or describe what this particular person or group is going through. For example, the word harassment was not a word until the 70s. It was not a word in use until the 70s. So that doesn't mean that before the 70s, people weren't being harassed. There was just a word in mainstream culture to capture the meaning of being harassed. So imagine having the feeling of being harassed, but not having the word to express it for the people in power to actually be able to do something about it.
Wow.
Right? Then you have memory injustice, where you have statues. An example of that, you have statues all over the place of Confederate war generals. They lost the war, but yet there's monuments to them as if they won. And those monuments represent a memory subconsciously in the minds of anyone who sees it that those people who have been made a monument to are powerful and they're better than me because I don't see anybody that looks like me made a monument of. I don't see any black statues. So all of those things, and there's other types of injustices under epistemic injustices, but the question is, how does Raekwon come to know that his only options are basketball or rapping? How did he come to know? How did he come to the point in his understanding of himself and the world that his options are these limited options, right? And so Ta-Nehisi Coates in Between the World and Me, I'm gonna just read this quick quote. He says, "Some days I would take the train into Manhattan. I saw white parents pushing double wide strollers down gentrifying Harlem boulevards in t-shirts and jogging shorts. I saw them lost in conversation with each other, mother and father, while the sons commanded entire sidewalks with their tricycles." Listen to this. "The galaxy belonged to them. And as terror was being communicated to our children, I saw mastery communicated to theirs." This thing runs so deep because from the moment we are born in this country, there is a concerted effort to make sure one thing is communicated to us and something else is communicated to everybody else, particularly people who are white. And so they're brought up with the understanding of the world is mine no matter what. We're brought up with the, I don't know if I should do that. Maybe we should just worry about surviving and not succeeding.
Yeah.
Because that's what's, especially if you come from an immigrant family, all of us on this line, they were more concerned about surviving than they were about succeeding. So they were fearful to take risks, and we honor them for it because somebody had to take the safe way in order to build a foundation for us. But this is what we're dealing with. So the issue comes in with changing how our community thinks from the moment a child is born and giving them a certain perception of the world that they too can master the galaxy.
Oof. Wow. That's really deep there, man. So Raekwon, go ahead, Greg.
No, what I was gonna say was that much like what Brandon was saying is he's hitting it right on the nail. And to get more specific, we are taught differently what our history is and what our legacy is, as opposed to what everyone else is taught. Just between ourselves, between the diaspora of what Black people are, what African Americans are, there was a time, just like the term nigger is a derogatory term, we hold that, as a derogatory term. There was once a point where Black was a derogatory term. Explaining, even between us, we're Caribbean men, understanding the legacy that comes from each of our own individual islands. Haiti has a tremendous history, tremendous legacy of how they've overcome. Barbados, we are cut off from information that benefits who we are as a people. And I think, and I tell this very, very, very often, much like what Brandon just said, if you understand not only the American history, and you understand world history as it pertains to people of color, melanated people, none of this will be an overt surprise to you. So we have to train ourselves to come, with more information. Raekwon doesn't know it. Some of us don't know it. I'm still learning.
I'm still learning. Greg, you getting me going, man. Because
I'm still learning.
I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna let everybody else. See,
no, go ahead. Go ahead. There is this. For anybody who wants to, I'm going to challenge you. If you really want to know how did we get here? If we look at all of human history, there's a book that I'm reading called How Europe Conquered the World. And there's another book called Germs, Guns, and Steel. Basically how Europe took over the world. If you had a time machine and I said to you, I'm going to send you back to the year 900. And you said, okay, great. And I said to you, pick anywhere in the world you want to go. You would not say Europe. You would say, take me to China, take me to the Middle East, take me to certain parts of Africa. Take me there. Don't take me to Europe, because in the year 900, Europe back then looked a lot like how Afghanistan looks today. Lawless, impoverished, violent, no law, no infrastructure, no economy, no wealth. It was a disaster. It was violent. One European country would fight the other European country. And here's the thing I love. They were white, but they were impoverished. Their poverty led to their violence. Say that again, Brandon. They didn't hear you, bro.
Poverty.
They didn't hear you.
And their close proximity to one another led to white on white crime. Because poverty always equals pain. It just does. What that pain is up to you. But in most cases, poverty equals pain. And when you have pain and proximity, the people closest to you, we know this in families, the people closest to you are the ones you hurt the most. And so what happened in Europe because of the violent, impoverished country or continent that it was, violence erupted all over Europe. Because violence erupted over Europe, the country said, we have to get more weapons. We have to get more advanced technology with our weapons. They heard about gunpowder in China, went to China and got the gunpowder technology. And they, because of their impoverished realities and because of their violent manifestations, because of poverty, they were like, I don't want this country to take us over. I don't want that country to take us over. Let's all get guns. And so an arms race exploded in Europe over the next 100 plus years. An arms race, just like with the nuclear war. I mean, the Cold War between Russia and America.
The US.
An arms race erupted over Europe. And it got to a point where, just like it did with Russia and America, there was mutually assured destruction. We got our guns pointed at each other. You could kill me, I could kill you. This doesn't make any sense. Let's point our guns outward to these other places around the world and see if we could make some money from it.
History.
That is history. That's one of the ways. And then when they went to these other places, like the Americas, the Incas and the Aztecs here in North and South America, what they did, they basically brought, just for our own contemporary understanding, they brought coronavirus to a So imagine a coronavirus breaking out now, and there's no hospital infrastructure, there's no sufficient medication, and people don't have immunity to those diseases. So you could wipe out a whole population of people, which is what they did, just from germs that they weren't immune to before you shot one gun. So there's this idea that has been inculcated in our minds from the time we grew up in this country, if you're Black, that they're smarter than us.
Right.
They're better than us. And that they were always in this position of power. And that could not be farther from the truth. I digress.
Wow.
And what Brandon is saying is that it's not most, as a person of color, we can come at ourselves for not knowing our history in America. Particularly, we're Caribbean, we're from different places. My mother's Haitian, your mother's Barbados. We understand that there's rich history where we come from. And to a degree, you can be forgiving towards white people that that may legitimately be white allies, right?
Right.
But what we can't separate in this country is actual history. Things
that happened,
that have happened, that prove everything that Brandon just said. Literally right now, Brandon just explained human nature. This is human nature for people, for domestic altercations to happen is human nature. And in America, when you are a person of color, you are not treated as if you are human. What you do naturally is vilified.
Break that down, Greg. Break that down. Break that down, Greg. You got to break that down. What do you mean by in America, a Black man is not treated like a human? Break it down. We don't. We need to stop fighting with each other as if that is the headline. That's human nature. We need to stop fighting with each other. When for history, the history of America is fighting, is white people fighting with each other.
It's violent. That's right.
Europe. And understanding this history liberates your psyche as a person of color, and it really helps you to understand the systems in place to hold you down, which is where we are right now. Where we are, Dr. King did a phenomenal job in advancing us when it comes to civil rights, but the systemic injustice that went into place after is where we are right now. Where we are right now.
Wow. Go ahead, Jeff. It looked like you were about to say something.
No, I'm just loving this history lesson, this is deep talk on a Sunday, man. Guys are using words like inculcated,
So but Brandon, hold up. I'm happy you said that. I'm happy you said the inculcated word. Raekwon is not learning this. Where is he going to get this from? Where's he getting this
I don't like that
information?
name, bro. Why we got Raekwon?
Listen, you know what's
All right.
funny? You know what's funny? Why don't you like that name? Why? Because it's not a European name. It's not a European name.
That's not what I was doing. That's not what I was doing. Keep going, Sam. Keep going.
No.
I apologize.
No.
Keep going.
Because,
I apologize.
No.
Keep going, my brother.
I used to be
trapped Greg. You trapped Greg. No, that wasn't fair, man. Please, let's.
No, it was fair.
No, because people need to hear this. People in the world need to hear, right? I used to be told, right, that you have to the resumes, right? You got to be careful what you name your child.
Yeah.
Because when your child is going on an interview, you know, and what they really meant to say is when your child's going on an interview for white people so that they can be comfortable, right? Or they can't tell if it's a white person or a black person. So you need to have a nice clean name so that you can get the opportunity.
Clean.
A nice clean name. So if your name is Raekwon, there's a sentiment.
That's right.
There is a unconscious bias, right? There is a predisposed bias that is going to be allocated towards you even before you say a word. Even before you open your mouth. In some cases, they just see the resume, a piece of paper. They didn't see your face. They didn't even look at the school you went to, and you are automatically disqualified from the opportunity because of your African king name, your African conqueror name that was given to you, Jeff Lindor.
So, I mean, you know, I hope this is not an endorsement to call your child's name Obamnisha, right? But even if you do, it doesn't matter, right? You know what I mean?
So what? So what if I
sounds
call
beautiful.
Beautiful to me. Obamnisha, the name after the first Obama in the United States of America.
Listen, that was a joke. That was a joke.
Nah,
Right? So now that all of the fancy people use fancy words and had deep conversations.
Jeff Lindor, okay.
Right? Let me.
My name is Jeffrey.
Right.
Exactly.
Everything that you said. No, here we go. So everything that you said, I want to put a pre-COVID text to it, right? You know what I mean?
Okay.
So we were just talking about the problem, right? You know, and then we could talk about that forever. Let's talk about some solutions, right? So here's the thing. So for these past 2 weeks, I've been seeing a lot of people, corporations, institutions saying, what is it that they can do? And then some of them are even putting money up, right? So who would have thought that in 2020 is a really interesting year, right? But who would have thought that in 2020, that the New York City Police Department would take, I think, 150 million, right? Matter of fact, that was in LA. So the LA Police Department took $150 million out of the police department and put that into youth programs, right? And the mayor of New York City just did the same thing about like an hour ago, right? You know? So I'm saying that to say that this is an opportunity now for us to really draft what is it that we want and what is it that we can get? Because the community now is so, I feel like I don't want to say the word enlightened, but like we're realizing more and more the power that we have in the mobility. And my hope is that it leads to tangible results. So these tangible results, and you're seeing action being taken place. One, I mean, just from a systematic standpoint, I think Brandon or Greg said that, you know, there's statues, and that's a reminder of where you are. But now on the White House, well, you know, on Pennsylvania Avenue, leading up to the White House, if I'm not mistaken, you know, it like says Black Lives Matter. If someone were to say that you can do that,
that mayor is the GOAT right now.
Right, exactly. But if someone were to say that you can do that on Flatbush Avenue, right, you know, then everyone would have been like, what? No, get out of here, right? So this time last year, if all three of us were to say, hey, on Flatbush Avenue, matter of fact, even in Brownsville or in East New York or anywhere in New York City, we would have put the Black Lives Matter like on the pavement, everyone would have said that no, like that's impossible, right? You know, that's not going to happen. So for that to happen in right next to the White House, steps from the White House, that just shows you, that's one example, because that's the symbolism, right? You know, but that's one example of action-orientated steps. And I think that once we lean more towards solutions, and I have a lot of solutions that I would love to talk about. And I don't want to hang up, I mean, like, you know, take up a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, I think that if we reprogram our mind, Black folks, to say, hey, you know what, pre-COVID, this is how we were operating. Post-COVID, yo, listen, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that that's something that we should take into account. Yes, bro.
I was gonna say that what you're saying right now is something that a year ago we all knew was amazing. It was brilliant. That is a solution, right? But I think we literally just saw it at the when Corona hit. I think we literally just saw with our eyes. We knew it before, but we saw with our eyes another tool of racial oppression in this country, and that's monopolizing our time. Okay. I fully believe that we are where we are with this movement right now because no one has anything else to distract them in the moment.
That's so true.
You are not burdened down by the job 9 to 5 that underpays you, particularly if you're a person of color, and that monopolizes your time. You know, you are home.
That's so true.
In front of television.
Yep.
You can't be with friends. You're socially distanced. So this entire movement, not only for people of color, but also for white people, is because we have nothing else to focus on in the moment. This right here is taking our attention, and it begs you. You have to understand that you look at it and see, okay, poor people and the middle class have absolutely been used as a tool of oppression in terms of how this country is financed. Guys, a week into this country, a week into a shutdown, our country went bankrupt. A week. I needed a loan for this. I needed a loan for that. Mind you, you know, somebody, you know, like me and Jeff, you know, we got $1,200 in the mail. Brandon's rich and Sam is rich. They don't need that. But we got $1,200 in the mail, you know, and, you know, you're like,
you just messed up. Everything you said is erased now. All the power you just said is done because you got to say something.
Can I add something to what Greg just said real quick, right? I'm sorry to cut you off, Greg, but so I was listening to Dave Chappelle one time, and he said something so deep, and he was like, oh, I have the ability to do something that most Black men in America cannot do. And he said, I am in the position to do this because I have money and I have freedom to do it. And he says he has the opportunity to think. When he said that, I was like, oh, snap, right? Because we are so inundated with life. So why am I going to focus on my Blackness when I'm literally just trying to survive? Or I can't offend my white boss because if I really talk about how I feel, then I'm just going to go to the table, right?
But this is the question, Jeff. How do you feel? How do you feel? And why do you feel the way you feel?
Well, so I feel so because
not Jeff. I'm going back to Raekwon, right?
Oh,
why does Raekwon have the feelings that he has, and why does he need to talk to his white boss about how he feels, right?
I see where you're going, Sam. I see where you're going. Let Brandon finish. So Brandon jumping out his seat right now.
Can I crazy? Because yes, that's true that our attention has been monopolized by everything else, especially when you're Black. It's monopolized by trying to survive, and for
systematically,
everything's systematic with us. And in addition to just trying to survive, there's also a bunch of us that want to succeed, but we have to fight through the survival of everything that our experience causes us to have to go through, and then also on top of that, try to survive, right? But even when Corona, as horrible as it was, gave us the opportunity to not have to deal with some of the racist things we deal with in industry and in the things that we do in business and all of that, and we could kind of breathe. Even when we turn to protest, this movement was spawned not because a black man was killed.
Ooh.
This outrage has taken center stage because a black man was killed and white people didn't like it. This is what Martin Luther King had to do. Martin Luther King, in his genius, said, listen, if we protest, they're going to stick the dogs on us, they're going to stick the hoses on us, but the news cameras are going to be there. So we have to make sure the news cameras show what's really going on, because not because it's gonna make anything better for us in the moment, but because it's gonna legitimize in the minds of the white people watching, because it's the white people that the government will listen to. If this thing had happened, and we know if it wasn't on video, forget about it. But if it had happened and only the black community knew about it, it was on video, but only the black community knew about it, it would not have the outrage that it has. But because, so again, our freedom and our justice is held hostage in the hands of the white consciousness. If they don't feel that our gripes are legitimate, there's no change.
Yeah.
But in order for them to see the legitimacy, and you said it, Greg, how could you be the governor of Mir and not know what's going on in your own police department? Of course you knew. You didn't care until you started getting from white people all over the world saying, listen, this is not right. That was kind of crazy. This has been going on forever. This is not new. George Floyd is not the first person where this has happened to. This has been going on from 1619 to 2020. There's been a knee on our necks. And so ultimately, our freedom is still in the hands of white people. It's still in the hands of white people, still to this day, even with this situation.
It's a rough deal, man, because people can really look at the last 2 months and watch. You can look at the last 2 months and almost play out the last 60, 70 years since Martin Luther King died of what has happened in this country. And within 2 months, towards the close end of our president's tenure here, country is doing great, supposedly.
Right.
Here's what I think too with Corona, what you just said, because Corona, as horrible as it is, and it's horrible. I've lost people to Corona, and so I want to just kind of give my condolences. I got a dog, a little baby dog now. She's tearing it up. My condolences to everybody who lost anyone. Corona has done something subconsciously to people. I think that the day before Corona happened, we were all living in this false sense of not just security, but conformity and reality, in that we thought that life had to be the way that it was. We never thought that there would be a day where you didn't have to go to work, your 9 to 5. You didn't think there was a day where you didn't have to pay a bill on time and have a way to get out of it. You didn't think that, like, all of the systems that we lived in before Corona came and turned it upside down. And we saw, just like that the world we knew prior to Corona is no more. And yet life still continued, right? And so what Corona did was show us things don't really have to be this way.
Nope.
Things really don't have to be like this. And I think that's consciously made people around the world who have, let me finish. It has made people around the world who saw what happened and who are outraged, particularly Black people, say, hold up, just like I got to stay home and you changed my whole life from this Corona thing, I don't have to accept all of these systems moving forward either. Right. And I can do something about it now. And I think Corona kind of subconsciously had something to do with that.
Yep.
It is.
Right.
Listen, it is a big the way this country monopolizes the poor class and the middle class, in the way that we are the engine for American commerce. We are the engine for it. As in, people could not go to work, and our country shut down in 1 week. They had to start sending. 1 week they had to start sending money. Am I up? Yeah. In 1 week they had to start sending money to corporations. Okay. Understand that it was our collective tiredness, our collective, we don't have time for this, our collective, you know what, I'll deal with this another time. All of that was what was happening, contributing to our own oppression. And it's interesting, this is literally how, what's going on? I see things happening. We back?
Yeah, we're back.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, okay, I couldn't see anybody. But Brandon, you can't knock that. Looking at the last 2 months has been an experiment on why America sees us the way they see us, and 2, if we are awake, will this country be the same?
I think so. Say that one more time.
I was saying that this country, for over the last 2 months, we've seen that us being awakened is the tool for change in this country.
Yeah, listen. I think this has awakened us, but again, we have never been asleep when it comes to this issue. We've spoken up about. You can look at quotes from Malcolm X and quotes from James Baldwin and quotes from some of the great preachers from Brooklyn. Our pastor this morning talked about it. Sandy Ray and a whole bunch of like historic and legendary preachers here in Brooklyn, and the stuff that they wrote in the 50s, 60s, 70s about police brutality and racism. You would think it was written today. So I don't think that we have been sleeping necessarily. I just think that. Unfortunately, the way that this country works, as evidenced by Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement, is that until other sympathetic white people come aboard, good luck.
Yeah,
that's just the way.
Okay, but is that because that's the leadership of this country?
Not just the leadership of the country. That's the fabric of the country. That's how the country was. We got to understand. Slavery was a Caribbean project. European slavery, specifically British slavery, French slavery, Spanish slavery was a Caribbean enterprise. When they saw the success of slavery in places like Jamaica and Barbados and Haiti, what they did was, particularly we're going to talk about the British, they took the economy of slavery that was exploding in the Caribbean and took it to the first place in America in South Carolina. And said, now, the same way we proved that concept of having forced labor by using enslaved Africans, let's try to build an entire society around that. Then they brought it here. Even during that time, y'all, before America was even America, before that time, there was a movement in Europe that basically said, listen, I don't know about us enslaving people like this. This is not really cool. I don't know about this. And then John Locke, if you study government, if you study government, study philosophy, you
took it back.
You would have heard that.
Going back, fam.
You would have heard
John
that
Locke, bro.
1800s, right? John Locke, the first slave ship came in 1619, but setting up a system of slavery and economics and tying the two together to build a society, the first place was South Carolina. I was responding to Marcus.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Brandon. Not to interrupt. Go ahead.
So what they did was they said John Locke, L-O-C-K-E, Marcus, if you want to Google him, John L-O-C-K-E. John Locke said, yeah, I know y'all feel funny about enslaving people. And John Locke, for those of us who don't know who John Locke is, John Locke created the ideology for us to create this constitution and social democracy. A lot of his treaties on liberty, you should read that, treaties on liberty. So on one hand, he was talking about liberty, but then he said, but the liberty that I'm talking about, Europeans, it doesn't apply to those Africans. They are not human, so it's okay for us to enslave them. And our pastor said this morning too, we have to take away their humanity in order for us to be able to handle psychologically enslaving another person. And that's so the country was built on dehumanizing us and taking away all of our power as people. Go ahead.
I only have one question for that, Brandon. If I remember correctly, I might have the people wrong. Wasn't John Locke a Christian?
That was all of them. And
whoa! Wait a minute! Whoa! What's going on here?
They were churchgoers.
So now, just to piggyback off of Brandon,
don't clean it up, Jeff. Jeff, don't clean it up. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, Jeff.
So like just to piggyback off of Brandon for what he was saying about John Locke, even more recently, like I believe it was Ronald Reagan's senior advisor. He was on record saying that, let's, pour like drugs into the Black community, have them kill themselves, etc. So when you look at the, like cocaine and heroin and drugs in our community, one has to ask, how exactly did they get there? How did it get there? Right. And, so, and now when you look at 2019, and like, most recent history, the opioid crisis, it's more so now as a, health crisis, as opposed to before it was, let's incriminate our people. So like history, is not really pleasant towards Black people, but again, like I want to, if I may, change the subject a little bit so that I can, help to give talking points for the people watching so that they can know how to articulate what they're.
I was going to say that there are questions being asked, I think, on different platforms.
No, sure.
How do we do that? Yeah.
Right. No, but what I'm saying is that it's important that our community has the tools and the information and the talking points to know how to change things. Because over the past 2 weeks, last week, 2 days ago, so many people are reaching out to me. And I know that with everyone listening, your boss is probably reaching out. There's so much white guilt all over the place. But if we are only talking about the problem, then how are we going to capitalize on this moment, right? So if I may, Moderator Sam Pierre, Anderson Cooper, can I give just 2 suggestions, right? Some 2 quick talking points. Yeah, like, is
sure.
that okay?
Sure, you have a collar shirt on. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to know what's under this, but that's a whole other conversation. That's a whole other conversation.
We already know. Continue.
Right. And just before you do it, my brother Sean Rochester just dropped a big bomb on the chat right there. But I'm gonna let, since we don't want to talk about really deep topics around Christianity, the connection to Christianity and slavery. Since we don't want to talk about it. Let's go back to let's go back to everything else. Go ahead.
Well, so I'm happy that Sean is listening, because when it comes to solutions, I was literally going to reference his book that I read called The Black Tax, which gives us the model of how to make sure that you have the talking points and you know what your ask is, right? So right. I'll just say these 2 things, right? Well, just one thing, because again, like I don't want to take too much of the time, because we have guys with hats that are backwards on, right?
Right.
But I would say these 2 things for government, but also for corporations. We're talking about a lot of hiring, which is really important. But let's talk about contracting. So for corporations, right? One of the reasons why I was a big proponent of Amazon coming to New York City wasn't necessarily because of the jobs, but it was because of the foot traffic and what that would do to entrepreneurs around the area. So if you have 100,000 people, 100,000 new people going into an area every single day, now that's 100,000 that's 100,000 people that you can sell to, right? But I don't want to speak about business, but I want to speak about what corporations can do. So what corporations can do, what the white corporations that many of us work for, right, who feels really guilty. So if Amazon really wants to support the Black community, then now they'll hire Brandon's firm to do the real estate, right? You know, they will hire Greg once he goes into private practice to have diversity trainings and counseling trainings with their staff. They won't have Greg volunteer. No, you'll pay Greg thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. Because what that does, once Brandon, and our community doesn't like to speak about money. Money is a taboo thing. I don't know why. But
Yeah.
When Brandon becomes a multi-gazillionaire, Brandon is not gonna use that money just so that he could get a Bentley. No, like we're past that stage.
It's a fact.
Brandon is gonna use that money so that he can hire so many people who look like him. So when you look at corporations and corporate America, etc., when you're saying, "Oh my God, like why is it so white? Why is it so white? Why is it so white?" It's because they're hiring people or they're partnering with people that's in their close proximity, right? So my first thing, and then I'll pass it on to you, gentlemen. If your corporation wants to, if the company that you're working for is saying, what can we do to, you know, support the Black community, hire the Black community, but not only hire us when it comes to working, hire us to contract. And one last thing, 30 more seconds, right? There was a gentleman, I forget his name, and I'm mad because I would love to give him credit for this statement here. So he runs a marketing agency, and he says that big corporations, what they do is that they hire the white marketing agency, right? Gives them the hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars contract, and then that white agency then now gives the Black marketing agency the crumbs.
Right.
Every industry.
They give them the, but check this out. That white agency was hired to find out more about Black people, right? So that's an example of a tangible thing. If your company, if your organization, if your government agency wants to know what exactly can they do about Black people, I mean, what can they do for Black people? Tell them, put some money in Black people's pockets. Thank you.
And can I just briefly say what the opposite of what you're saying is, Jeff? The opposite of what you're saying is a mother a single Black mother who has to be at work at 8 a.m., at 7 a.m., and the child has to be at school at 7:45, and that child is going to be in school all day. That mother has to work 12 to 14 hours. She comes home, she's tired from work, she has no time to manage her children. She has no time to pay attention to do homework. What's homework? We don't have to do. I don't know what that is. You should know what that is. I send you to school to learn. Okay, we have no time for our families, no time to interact, because almost systematically, it is like our sole purpose is to work. It's to work. Our children are falling apart because of it. Our social time, our mental health is falling apart because it's almost as if this country tells us that as a poor class and as a middle class, no, like what you're saying, Jeff, we don't want to give you contracts. We just need you to work. Doesn't matter what's the impact of the work. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Doesn't matter if it affects your mental health. Doesn't matter if you have very little time. It does not matter. That's the flip side, right?
Yeah, no, forget the work, and then here is one last thing that a lot of corporations do. I don't know what the proper language is. I wasn't born in this country. I'm sorry, but this is what they do, right? Which is a mask, right? So a lot of companies have employee resource groups, right? And a lot of companies have
employee resource groups. What's that? Break it down.
ERGs, right? So ERGs is, like where corporations would have certain segments, right? So they'll be the LGBTQ group, and there'll be the Black group, and there'll be the very similar to college, where like they have the student governments in a sense, right? You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
That would be a better analogy. And then, a lot of companies have chief diversity officers, right? But here's what I would say where a lot of them fail at that. Because with the chief diversity officers or with the ERGs, there's no budget behind it, right? And a lot of times the chief diversity officer isn't a part of the executive staff.
Right.
They don't have a budget. They don't really have weight, and they don't report to the CEO. They report three layers down. Yeah.
So what's the point of it then, Jeff?
It's to show face. And here's another thing too, right? Like if we're speaking clearly, I mean, sorry for you guys woke me up, right? Like if we're speaking really clearly and direct, corporations don't want to hire Black people.
No.
They don't. Oh. You know what? Let me drink my water. They don't want to hire Black people. Let me tell you why, right? Damn, man, you guys have woke me up. Okay. Think about it like this. If companies are saying, oh, we need to solve all diversity problems and things like that, no, you don't. You don't. It's not a priority to you. If your company is able to bring folks to the moon out of space, your company brought people out of space, and you're telling me that you can't solve the diversity problem? Really? It's not a priority. Your company is literally changing the way the world works.
And you can't solve it.
You can't figure out how to hire Black people? No, of course you can, but it's not a priority. There's no budget line for that, right? It's not something that you care about. So a lot of this lip service without dollars and budgets and money behind it, it's a problem. And
research and development departments, right?
Yeah, it's not a priority. And then one last thing, and then I'll be quiet.
You're not the preacher now. You had like 6.
I don't want to get in trouble, right? One last thing, which is really upsetting to me, right? Is that, and I'm gonna use an example of New York City government. So today, it said that the mayor of New York City is cutting the police department's budget and allocating it towards youth services, right? But let me be clear.
Please be clear.
If you give that money to white organizations servicing Black people, right? So now here's the thing. If you carve $100 million, right, out of the NYPD's budget, and now
$6 billion budget, by the way, $6 billion budget.
Yeah,
they're taking out $100 million.
Exactly. So now, here's the thing, right? If you take out $6 billion, you carve out $100 million, right, out of it. And here's another disgusting thing. So a $6 billion budget. And summer youth employment cost $150 million. So you were going to have our young people not get work, and because you couldn't find $150 million out of a budget that is $90 billion. So where do you prioritize your stuff, right? That's one. But then now you carve out $100 million, you take that from the NYPD, and now you are, giving youth services. But then now, if you're going to contract, because the way for those who understand, the way that it works is that the city contracts that money into an organization, and that organization delivers the service. But if you're contracting that money to a white organization with white staff, white executives, and just hire Black people to service the kids, but the white staff are the ones that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars, then you know what? That's lip service.
You just shuffle the money.
Poverty is an enterprise. for
Yes,
white
it
people.
Ooh, Jeff woke up. Jeff
Man,
woke
man,
up.
y'all don't woke me
Jeff
up.
woke up. Jeff
I
woke
don't
up.
even like to
Nah,
talk
Jeff
like
woke up.
that.
Jeff woke
You know I
up.
don't like
Jeff
to
woke
talk,
up.
I gotta give you
man.
some offering. I gotta give you
You
some
know I don't like
Jeff
to
woke
talk.
up.
But no, yeah, well, you know I don't like to talk. But it is an enterprise for white people,
an enterprise,
right? Because now, how is it that in New York City, hear me out, and this is the last thing that I say so that I don't get in trouble.
You were preaching because you said that 10 times.
But this is the last thing that I say, right?
Right, sure.
This is the very last thing that I'm gonna say is that in New York City, Black people are overrepresented in the justice system, overrepresented in the housing system, you know, NYCHA and things of that sort, right? ACS, homeless services, etc. Department of Corrections, for which that I know because I used to do some work there a long time ago, right? But if Black people are overrepresented in those agencies in terms of the service, why is it that it's white organizations that are getting the tens of millions of dollars in contracts to provide services to our people? That is insulting. That is a scam. That's also a way to keep us impoverished because they're benefiting off of our demise. And I'll leave it at that.
Wow. Jeff woke up, guys.
Jeff, man, go get some water, brother. You need some?
Yeah,
Jeff woke up.
actually
Jeff
can't
woke
stand
up.
up.
You all right?
Jeff woke up. Jeff woke up, and you said some deep stuff right there, Jeff. Because this
Poverty
is
an
the thing,
enterprise.
right? Poverty is an enterprise, right? And this is the kind of stuff that our people need to hear. And it goes back to our original question: who's speaking for us, right? Who's talking for you, Jeff? Right? If poverty is an enterprise, who is in the rooms saying, "Hey guys, we don't need more money on social services. We need more money on entrepreneurship promotions. We need more money for contracts. We need more money for career development." Who's speaking for us? Who is speaking for the Black man, right? And I want to roll right in. As a moderator, I get it. I'm allowed to be a little controversial. So who's the one speaking for you? Is it the white man that's speaking for you? Greg.
Listen, on a day-to-day basis, I work with teachers and children and family, and I see firsthand some of the difficulty that families have, just staying on their feet, raising their children. I see the things that are systematically in place, and what's sad about it is that it's not just today. When I was a kid, I went to PS 189 in Brooklyn. Miss Forston was the principal. Love Miss Forston. Shout out to PS 189. And even then, a young Black boy in a mostly Black school, I had issues sitting in class. I was melting. Teacher was teaching, and I was melting crayons on the radiator. Like I was wilding in class. Okay, when I was a kid, I didn't have teachers that wrote me off. I had teachers that accepted me. One, because primarily because as a Black person, they knew what my family was going through. They knew that my parents were immigrants. They were working 14 to 16-hour shifts, home attendant, maid. My mother just stopped being a maid maybe a couple years ago. And I'm watching her detox from life. And the only thing that I complain about my mom a lot, the only thing that I know to make her happy is to let her do what she wants to do. Literally, take my credit card, do what you want to do. Because I've watched my mom work so hard, and my father be so distracted, that as a young man growing up, it took so much influences and God placing people in my life to be even half as mature and developed as I am right now. And I'm a mess. Okay. So to answer your question in terms, it is a really big system of oppression that is in our communities, poor communities, people of color communities, in our schools. You know, and I think this time benefits from everybody being more knowledgeable, including white people.
I think at the end of the day, whoever owns the land makes the rules. Bottom line. We could sit here and talk to tomorrow. Bottom line, whoever owns the land makes the rules. If we look at the children of Israel, when it was time for them to come out of Egypt, God didn't promise them a school, didn't promise them a hospital, didn't promise them clothes, didn't promise them none of that. It was promised land. Why? Before capitalism was ever even thought about, before mercantilism and communism and socialism and all the other political and economic systems that exist today, before all of that, God said to the children of Israel, I'm going to promise you land after you come out of slavery. Why? Because even then, even God understood and made it understood amongst his people that if I give you land, I'll give you a future. Because if you have land, all of the other stuff that you really need will come from that land because you control the land. If you don't control the land, you cannot make the rules. And so the only thing this world understands is money. The only thing people that's why they're okay with
violence.
It's okay with us. They're okay with us having a church, but they're not okay with us. They're not okay with us owning the church or owning the land that the church is on. They're okay with us going to their schools sometimes, but not us owning the school to the point where we dictate what's in the curriculum. You see what I'm saying? So my thing is there has to be, and there's a lot of talk of they got to give us. And I think our next talk, we could talk about reparations, because then I think that should be where the they got to give us talk should be, because that is a conversation that needs to really go viral about reparations in this country and in the Caribbean countries around the world, or in the Caribbean, not around the world, but in the Caribbean. But at the end of the day, there has to be a discussion about how we own our own. And that way we don't have to ask anybody for any contracts. We don't have to ask anybody for any of that because it's ours. And we decide how those resources are allocated. Until then, we'll always be at the mercy of our oppressors, period. That is the end. The only reason, you know what happened with Black Wall Street. You know the story of Black Wall Street. We talked about it this morning in church. They are okay with us having everything else except for our own economic empowerment and self-sufficiency. When you have that, case is closed.
Mm-hmm. So my question now, I want to take it back, is so who's speaking for you then, Brandon, in your industry, right? You're in the real estate industry, correct?
I am.
So who's speaking for the Black male in the real estate industry?
Nobody. I mean, let me not say nobody, but I think there's not a black and white answer to that, and no pun intended.
Right.
In real estate, I think there's different levels of degrees of sophistication, I'll say, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
You have brokers, and you have certain levels of, there's levels to that. And just like there's levels to, I do real estate development and investment. So, there's the institutional side, there's the private equity side, there's all of that stuff that we could talk about. Jeff and I talked about that at Gentleman's Factory a few weeks ago. I thought that conversation was amazing. But I think that, and my boy John Crofton is on, he's a beast. I think that there's so few of us, like really, really few of us on the really higher levels. I used to work for a guy named Don Peebles. At one point, he was the largest African-American real estate developer in the country. So I worked at his company, and that was the first place where I was involved and raised capital for multi-million-dollar, $200-300 million deals here in New York and DC and Boston. And that's where I was able to see. But even in those fields, he was pretty much, there's like one other guy in California, Victor McFarland, who's another big developer, black developer. I could literally count on one hand the amount of black guys at that level of the game in real estate. So I really don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. I don't know who speaks for us. I think it's a function of our success speaking for itself, and then allowing the few of us that there really are to really speak up and really build some sort of consensus around what we need to make happen. But I think in so many cases, we meaning us individual developers and investors who are Black, we're so focused on running the race that we have to try to build some kind of a success for our companies and for ourselves, that I think sometimes we're guilty of forgetting that there's kind of more to it than just that. And it's a tough balance. It's a really tough balance.
So Sam, like if I can answer your question directly, and I'm back now. I mean, like I had to take a little water, some wine right here. Right? I had to cool off a little bit, right? And just want to apologize for
no apologies. I'm not apologizing.
For me being too honest, right? You know what I mean? My level of frustration was really high. But what I would say, though, to answer your question about who speaks for us, Sam, to be honest with you, I don't want anyone to speak for me. Let me explain what I'm saying, right? I think that we're always looking for this figurehead, right? Or this one person, but they're not Christ, right? So now, for example, when we looked at Obama, like the expectations.
Whoa! Be careful! Be careful! I'm an Obama guy.
No,
be very careful, man.
I'm an Obama guy.
Keep going. Jeff, keep going. He wearing a backwards hat. He's not serious. Let me see if I see you. Keep going, bro. Keep going.
Like y'all don't got Jeff 2.0 right now, right?
No sacred caps, bro.
I'm not serious because I have a backwards hat. I'm not serious.
No.
That's amazing.
Listen to what I'm saying, right? So now, because we're so in need of a leader,
Black savior,
a Black figure, we put such expectations on this one or two individuals. And that expectation, once it's not met, then it leads to disappointment. So you're telling me that, and I think Obama should have done way more for Black people, but I don't even want to get into the politics of it.
I have a problem with that, but I'm not gonna, we can talk about it.
But listen to what I'm saying. My argument is that when it comes to who speaks for Black people, I say that we speak for Black people. Hear me out. Let me break that down a little bit. Give me 30 more seconds before you cut me off, right? So everyone has their lane, right? I know my lane. It's bringing folks together. It's community building, and it's policy, right? I'm a policy guy. I'm a solutions guy. Define the problem. Here's a solution. I don't really know tech. I don't know legal. I don't know, there are a lot of things that I don't know, right? However, Brandon knows real estate. Greg knows mental health and therapy. Sam knows. So now I think that we all should represent our community in the lane that we operate in. So let me even make that more practical, right? So if someone is in a corporation right now and you're that only Black person, I know it's a burden for you to speak for all Black people, but you guys speak for us, right? You know what I mean? When you see that they're hiring that corny white firm that knows nothing about our issues, etc., but then that's the firm that then now does the commercial for Pepsi, where Kylie Jenner comes in and then just there's this huge protest, and then this white woman comes in, and then pops a Pepsi bottle, and then now racism is over because a white woman now, right? You know what I'm saying? No, that. So Black folks that are in that room, I'm sorry, you got to speak up, right? So they are that leader in that room. And I don't even care what role you play in. If you're the secretary or if you are the director or whatever, you have to speak up. So when you're asking who's speaking for us, we need to speak for us, right? In every single way. Because I don't know everything. And even with the gentleman's factor, to even make it a little bit more personable, we're always getting press inquiries, etc. And I'm saying, and one of the first things that I say is don't speak to me, speak to a member at the Gentleman's Factory, because he may be a pillar in his lane, and he needs to be featured. Hence why Today, one of our members was just on Business Insider, right? You know what I'm saying? You know, focusing on the things that he does. And it referenced the Gentleman's Factory, but he was on Business Insider, right? So I'm using that as an example to say that we need to speak for us because everyone has knowledge gaps. So if we're looking for that one figure to represent literally every single angle of our lives, all someone has to do, and then they've done it before, is take that figure out. And that's it.
Can I respond to that? Can I respond to that?
Huh?
I don't disagree. You can't drink the wine on camera. You have to turn. You have to turn.
You know, you have to do that.
What do we want to say?
If you're gonna drink something, why you gotta drink wine in a fancy cup? It's all fellas on the phone, man. Whatever.
Where's your pinky ring? You got the pinky ring.
He's a fancy guy. He's a fancy guy.
All right, look. I hope you got pants on because he just got up real quick and before you know.
Why you do that? Why?
Let me see that they good. So I don't disagree with Jeff. I just wonder if the opposite end of the spectrum of not having somebody said it's first Sunday. I got you, Chance.
My boy Chris McKay just dropped some gems on here too. But go ahead, Brandon.
For sure. No, I agree with that. I just don't know. I don't know if those two extremes are either one of them are correct or is correct in this case. For example, Christopher McKay brought up a good point. There has not been one leader of our movement since MLK, Malcolm, Fred Hampton, and some others that the government basically either killed, locked up, discredited. I got it. And Jeff has a point. Having one figure representing all of these people and the weight of that representation is a lot on any one person. But I think at the same time, I just don't know if not having anyone representing us, or at least a body, is the answer either. And here's why. Because with that representation and leadership in a centralized way, and I'm not saying it has to be the way that it's been, I'm saying maybe there's another model we can try to figure out. But if the government doesn't have a body or a person or an organization to go to negotiate with, to say, listen, what are your demands? What are your demands? You guys, you have 10 million people out there around the world protesting. We want this to stop. What do we have to do? Who are they going to talk to?
Right.
They can't talk to the crowd. And the example that Jeff gave about him and the member and pointing to the member, all of that's good, and I agree. But at the end of the day, there's still a Jeff Lindor. The press inquiries come from you, and you reallocate those inquiries.
They're not trying to
right.
me.
So there has to be. So there has to be. The message does have to be bigger than the leader, but there should still be leadership. Just because the message is bigger than the leader. Because even with Jeff's message of community is bigger than Jeff, but Jeff is the leader.
Right.
So let's look at let's look at the Occupy Wall Street. That was a great conceptually, but there was no leader. There was no centralized place for there to be policy ideas, for them to negotiate with the powers that be. Sam was working for the guy. I'm not going to say it. Sam Boss was the guy who cleared out Zuccotti Park from all those wonderful protesters. And there was no one that. But I think here's a really interesting mix of those two realities. I think the Me Too movement is probably a good mix of both realities, where there isn't necessarily one leader, but there's a founder who's very vocal. Put it out there, who's a black woman, by the way, or actually I think it might be two black women, and they put it out there, let it take on a life of its own, and still have a voice, but they didn't centralize their power the way previous leaders did. And Me Too is still moving. So I'm just saying that ultimately, when you have that type of, you can't build an institution without that type of leadership, without leadership in general. That's the only thing that lasts. The only thing that lasts. If you look at any, hold on a second, and I'm gonna say this and I'm done. If you look at any movement in history, whether that be the Protestant Reformation, whether that be the abolition of slavery, whether that be even civil rights, let's say, there had to be leadership to create institution. Ideas can fade, but those ideas, in order for those ideas to manifest, it has to take on leadership. It has to take on some kind of direction. There has to be somebody moving it, or a group, not just one person, but a group of people moving it in a particular direction in order for it to get there. And that's kind of what I think.
No, so absolutely. So one thing about Occupy Wall Street, there was a lot of white people camping out. A lot of them, all they had to do was just take a shower, get a haircut, and they're probably working on Wall Street now. But that's a whole other conversation, right? But going back to what you were saying, I agree. But here's where it gets a little gray, right? Because with Black people, right? So like with the Me Too movement, it was a specific thing, right? You know what I mean? And we need this one specific thing, and that's it, right? Black issues, which is plural, it's issues, right? So now it's like, where are Black folks in real estate, right? You know what I mean? So now there needs to be an agenda there, right? You know what I mean? Where are Black people in education, right? There needs to be agenda there. So now it's like having that one, and then you actually clarified it, where now, like, it's not one, like, it's an institution, you know, like, for which now having those institutions, some of them may perhaps be in, I don't know, like the Congressional Black Caucus, right? You know what I mean? Or having institutions that like focuses on the layers and the complexities of Black issues, right? Because now there is Black immigrants, right? You know what I mean? There are Black this and there are Black this. So there's just so many, there are just so many layers.
Complex layers of all of this.
It's like,
it's crazy. But to your point, Jeff, today I was on a Zoom with my fraternity brother, Congressman Greg Meeks, who is one of the founding members of the Congressional Black Caucus, and he said something that shocked me. He said that the Congressional Black Caucus, as powerful as it is, every single session they put onto the floor of Congress a bill that would cause the country to go and visit all of the injustices that has occurred in all of the different agencies in the country.
Yeah.
And they only got 100 votes. Just got 100 votes. There's 435 members of Congress. They just got 100, finally got 100 votes, and they applauded themselves for getting 100 votes. And nobody took it seriously. The Congressional Black Caucus, nobody took that seriously. And watch this. Arguably the highest power that we have in this country is our Black members of Congress. And nobody took a bill. Watch this. White America did not take a bill seriously enough, right, for them to go and to research. We didn't even say to go and change. We just said to go and research. Yes, just to research to see what.
And why do you think it was only 100, Sam?
Because we have that many Black members now. The Black members, the Hispanic members, and the Asian members, right? They make up, right? I want to say maybe 80%. And then the other 20% is a few white members here and there that jumped on board. So now in 2020, so let's say they wanted to do this since 1980, right? Let's say they have 5 in 1980, 12. In 2020, they're at 100 and we've applauded. All right, we're at 100. Maybe in the next 30 years, we could finally get to a place where it could be taken seriously, not for reparations, not for the money, Greg, but for the research to happen, to look into the disparity, to make it happen.
Watch this. Yo, like, if I can say this, and then hopefully I don't go off on a tangent, but I had some wine. I mean, no, this is like non-alcoholic wine, by the way, right? You know what I mean?
Jeff, your pastor's on here. He's fine. He's all right. He's okay.
He's calm.
This is actually
on here, and he's okay.
No, this is not. What I would say is this, right? And this is so taboo in our country, in our community, but it's money, right? We can't be broke. Here, let me be. Damn, man, I'm really about to go off on a tangent.
Take a button off. Take one
more.
Man, go in, bro.
Please close your shirt back, brother. Thank you.
No, but I'm tired of us being broke, right? And again, the reason isn't because we need to look fancy, but the reason is so that we can move things, right? Money is not everything. It absolutely isn't everything. But money gives you the ability to move things, right? And money also, think about entrepreneurship, for example. Like I'm gonna give an example about entrepreneurship. There are so many Black people who are brilliant, who have fantastic ideas, and who have great business models. But you wanna know why they don't get off the ground or they're not successful? It's because we have to operate in perfection. Because white people, they have money, so what money gives them is time.
They can fail.
It gives them time to fail, and it gives us time to make, and it gives them time to make mistakes. So everything that they do is in pencil. Everything that we do is in pen. That's it. That's it. They're not smarter than us. We're all human beings. But we have to operate in perfection, which is exhausting because we are not perfect. So what money does is it gives you the ability to make mistakes and figure it out. Period. Chris Rock says it best. Chris Rock said, you want to know what true equality is? True equality is when you can suck like the white man, right? You know what I mean? Meaning that there needs to be black actors and directors and producers that makes bad movies, right? Meaning that your movies could be bad and you can come back, right?
You can have failing businesses, grab women by the you know what. You can do all that and still be the president.
And then you can come back. Like you can come back. Like we are operating, we've been operating under perfection 100%. Because we do not have the resources to make mistakes. But here's the thing, we're always making mistakes. That's why we fail, because we can't come back. White people can come back. And I encourage everyone to watch this documentary called it's by a woman by Elizabeth Holmes. She created this company called Theranos, right?
She
created this company called Theranos, right?
Insanity.
It's on HBO. I forget the name. I think it's called The Invention or something like that, right? So this white woman, and again, you know, like I got nothing wrong with white people. You know, Jeff loves everybody, right? You know what I mean? But this white woman, she raised, hear me out, $900 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember this movie, Jeff. Yeah, you made sure I watched it.
So
The Inventor.
Yeah, The Inventor. So she raised $900 million, and her product never even worked, and not anyone ever questioned her. And you want to know who one of her investors were? CVS.
CVS what?
CVS gave her $350 million without even testing her product. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is that we need money, because without money, then we can't operate freely. So going back and circling back to Greg's point, and then I'll take a seat. The reason why so many people are frustrated right now, protesting, just like demanding solutions, because we have time to think now. So because we have time to think, we're now saying, yo, you know what? this shouldn't be. I'm tired of this. We should not be in the position that we're in. You know what? I hate my job. My company doesn't care about me, right? So it's like having that ability to think, you now start to realize who you are, the power that you have, and what's happening now. And now what's happening now, and this is why I believe that it's going to be a reshifting, right? And that's why, like, I think our community needs to start speaking pre-COVID and post-COVID.
That's right.
And I say that to say that if the federal government, the Federal Reserve, can print money, so they literally found, like billions of dollars. They printed it.
Trillion.
Oh, trillion. There you go. So they printed $1 trillion plus and just pushed it out, right? Not only that, am I muted? Do you guys hear me?
No, go ahead. Go.
Okay. So not only did they just print money out of nowhere, right? LAPD then withdrew $150 million out of the police department and put it into youth programs. Similarly, the New York City Department of the New York City Police Department did that as well. So now our community needs to clarify and direct our ask. Our ask needs to be very specific. It needs to be bold. It needs to be granular.
Who's asking?
Within the capacity of the government to do it.
Who's asking? See, I agree with you. Power is organized money or organized people.
Absolutely.
That's power.
Yep.
But and it goes back to what I said. To your point, who's asking?
So you want to know who's asking? And then that's a really good question, right? And then which validates your point, which I'm really mad, right? It's the fact that damn, man, this really validates your point. Okay, right? Because I was anti your point for a while, but now you actually.
Brian always does that. Brian always does that. I'm coming right behind you to make your point. Don't worry. I'm coming right behind you.
At this moment, okay, right? At this moment in time, right? You know what I mean? At this moment in time, there needs to be people at the table, right?
Leaders?
Leaders at the table, right? Brandon just wheeled me back in. Brandon just put me in his pocket.
Jeff, I'm right behind you. I promise I'm right behind you. I promise, bro.
No, so now watch this, right? Because Brandon just wheeled me back into his pocket. At this time, there needs to be leaders of every industry, though. Oh, watch this. Yo, like I just took it back from you a little bit, right? But there needs to be leaders so that we can now clearly define what our ask is. So that comes from the government level, right? And that also comes from the private sector level. And one of the things that I would recommend, one of our asks should be, is that if any company wants to go public, there needs to be a Black person on their board. Because watch this. They did that, but they said that there needs to be a woman. But it's all white women.
Public funds. Whenever public funds are being deployed to any company, in order to get that contract, in order to get any of it, there should be some diversity, specific diversity as it pertains to the Black community represented on your board.
No, so when a company wants to go to the stock market, bro.
Ooh, you're taking it to another level. Now,
wow.
Just the company wants to go to the stock market. Hold on.
Wow.
Let me ask you. So, and I love that. So help us understand in your mind why you think that would even be justified. Why would they? Because I could understand that argument for public funds. If you're going to say taxpayer dollars are going to go to a particular company, in order for us to give you this, you have to have some diversity represented in your board. Get that. Now, I love that. I love what you're saying. So tell us help us understand how we would justify a company going public on the stock exchange. And in order to go public, you have to have diversity in the true sense, not in the fake.
Sean is saying not diversity. He's saying black.
Black.
I like that's why I like let's use that word. Black. Diversity could be anything.
No. Diversity is white, right?
Specific to
specific. No, watch this.
On your board. That's what I mean.
Let me tell you why, right? Because to answer your question, who regulates it? The SEC. right?
Okay.
That is a government entity, right? So now, right, if the government regulates that, who controls the government? The people, correct?
That's good. That's good.
Right? So now it's within our right? It's within our right. So this person can't be a figurehead because this person now is mandated by the United States government.
See, and we should probably save this for the next time because the government can't hold organizations and entities accountable to something that the government
No. I'm not a lawyer.
Wait. They can't.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. But they're going to have a tough time telling New York Stock Exchange. They're going to have a tough time.
Wait. And let me add a point.
If I read New York Exchange, Wait, New York Stock Exchange. If I read New York Stock Exchange, hold on. If I ran the New York Stock Exchange, and I'm the president of the New York Stock Exchange, and the government tried to tell me that I could not admit anyone into the stock exchange, any company into the stock exchange, and they can't trade publicly here unless they do for the black community and whatever on the board and all of that. I would say, hold up, Mr. Government. Hold on, Uncle Sam. I look at the Congress and I see this. I see no diversity here. I see no diversity in the president's cabinet, especially the one we have now, right?
Wow.
So I would say, hold your horses. I'm taking you to court, and we're going to take this to the Supreme Court. Like that's what they would say. That's what I would.
Wait, can I drop a bomb? Let me drop a quick bomb. Let me drop a quick bomb.
Quickly, right? Two things. Number one, I don't give a damn what the issue is, right? They got to figure it out. That's number one, right? You know what I'm saying? They got to figure it out. That's number one. Number two, and sorry for using the word damn, right?
Jeff. This is the chat. Don't let us talk about the chat, Jeff.
Okay, right? But look, who cares?
No perpetrating, bro.
But then now, if something is easy, then it's an easy lift.
I'm with you.
Listen, we shouldn't ask for easy things.
I agree.
Right? We should ask for things that are so inconvenient right now because watch this. Watch this. Let me tell you this, right? If your ask is not bold enough, they won't respect you.
I just want to make sure I understand. Who's going to do the asking?
If your ask is not bold enough,
who's asking?
The leader, Brandon. The leader's making an asking.
All right, here's
Greg, before you go, let me just drop a bomb and then I'm gonna let you have it. Right? So we're gonna ask the head of the stock exchange that they can't trade unless they have a black person there. But then when we go in debt because of COVID, we're gonna go ask Warren Buffett to borrow money. All right, go ahead. Boom. All right.
Here's what I was gonna say, and it is. I think it's literally the bridge.
Hold on. I think I went over everybody's head, Greg. So the U.S. government, the U.S. government is borrowing money from billionaires to save the country. The United States Treasury, right, has to put billionaires on their board to save the country. So the same people that we're fighting are the same people that's funding our government. Go ahead, Greg.
Frank Jerome just said something crazy. In the comments.
Let me add Frank. That's my man Frank from St. John's, man.
Frank said something crazy in the comments. That's a dope comment.
I'm gonna say this. I think from a and I fully believe that this is in part a mental health conversation, the point that I'm about to make, that really takes Jeff's point and Brandon's point. Brandon, I 100% agree. There needs to be a leader. But then there's also Jeff's point and Jeff's example that once you're a leader, you have to willingly and ferociously duplicate yourself.
100%.
And you have to be unashamed of doing it. You see where you guys are in between. Like you need to. Jeff is the CEO of the Gentleman's Factory, and he's throwing stuff here, you do this, right?
Right.
We don't have enough leaders.
Duplication.
And we don't have enough leaders that want to duplicate themselves and make other people just as great as they are.
You got to be secure to do that.
Secure on yourself.
Secure.
That's why I said it's a mental health issue, particularly with our community. That's another conversation in and of itself.
So, Sam, I got to run.
Okay. No, I mean, we're closing it out.
Where you going?
Don't worry about where I'm
We're closing it. We're about to close. Let's give 2 minutes to close it out because I'll definitely close it at 8:45.
All right. So I mean, can I do one?
We have so many questions. Jeff, your pastor and my pastor too, right? Just dropped this gem right here. He said it has to be one, political, removal of those career black politicians that are not working for the interests of the minorities. Boom, right? Number two, financial, eliminate redlining practices by banks and insurance companies and create programs that educate minorities in business. That's a Zoom by itself right there. Redlining and insurance.
Each one of them.
Yeah. And number three, social. Enact programs that foster cross-culture education and interaction.
Cross-culture.
Let's stop. Nah, Pastor Willie. Pastor Willie, you
Can I say something about the first one?
That's not Pastor Willie. Pastor Willie be going in, man. Pastor Willie be going in, man.
Willie is also my unofficial pastor. Pastor Stevenson is my pastor, but Pastor Pierre, Mullery Jean Pierre, has been one of my dudes for years.
He be going in. He be going in, man.
I'm honored that he even came on our live.
Yeah, I'm honored too, man.
He's the man. So I think here's the issue with all of it, though. The first thing Pastor Willie said is true, and I think at the same time, these black politicians, I think a lot of them go in with the right intent, but they're going into a system that is corrupt already. So you could go in with all these intents, but when you're in a system that says you got to raise money like this, you got to raise this amount of money, no matter what, you got to do this, you got to do that in order to get reelected, and it plays against each other. Those interests. You have these competing interests. I want to do right for my community. I want to represent my people, but that may not.
But I want to survive,
and I gotta survive. And if I don't stay in the seat, then nothing's gonna happen. So it's like the whole system. The whole system has to change. The whole system. So I digress on that.
So Brandon, but before you leave, I want to hear Brandon's final point. We actually have two more minutes, and I want to give everybody final points. I'm just excited because our chat that we have is actually became a living organism, right? The chat that we have, that we talk to with each other every single day, became a living organism. I'm happy about that. Number one. Number two, it looks like we might have to do a series here because there's so much conversation. And not only that, we're all leaders in our own industries, right? We all have groups and our own folks that, we have that we all represent. And for us to come together to lean on each other, I want to drive that point. And we have each other. A lot of people don't have that. Like a lot of black leaders don't have four people that we talk every single day. Every single day we talk. We cry together. We laugh together. We celebrate each other, and we mourn together. Greg cries the most. Yeah, Greg's the most crying in the group. Yeah, but we I was not. Let me finish my point because I'm trying to be efficient here. I'm trying to be efficient.
I'm just happy Jeff is here. I'm just happy.
I'm happy Jeff is here too. We tease and we laugh, but we have each other. We have each other. We are all leaders in our own industry, and we have each other. And I want to drive that point here, right? So no matter what, when that guy, we didn't even talk about the guy that said Nigger on Brandon's thing today. We didn't even get a chance. The conversation was so good. We didn't even talk about the guy who put the word nigger on Brandon.
That post was up for like maybe 30 seconds, and it was like nigger.
Right.
Exactly.
30 seconds.
A white man, for those who don't know, Brandon put the post of our flyer up today, and a white man went on there and put the word nigger on Brandon's social media, and we left it up, and it's still up right now so people can see. Just because Brandon said that we were going to do this live tonight, right? So at the end of the day, to close out, right, because there's so much that we all got significant others and that we got to go handle. We have each other, right? So I responded and I told white boy, yo, when you're talking to Brandon Gibson, you're talking to me, and you're talking to 1,000 other black men. So make sure you know who you're talking to when you're talking, right? We have that though. There's a lot of other people that didn't get a chance. One of my friends who's in Georgia right now, Ricardo Rick's Melody, that I was trying to put up, but time got away from us. He dealt with a police stop 10 minutes before our Zoom today. And he hit me up from Georgia to tell me about his experience. He just got, despite the fact that we're protesting, despite the fact that George Floyd happened, he still got pulled over by a cop in Atlanta, Georgia, and had to relive, right, being poked and prodded post George Floyd. So there's a lot that's still going on. I want to close this program out by giving everybody, 1 minute to give your last and final words. We started the conversation with who speaks for us, right? And we heard so many different points, and we argued just like we do in the chat. But at the end of the day, I think it's a combination of everything that we said. So I want to give everybody 1 minute to talk directly into the camera to everybody who's out there, and give them the driving point whatever message that you want from your heart to leave with them. And we're gonna start with Brandon.
Hopefully, I can the next time we come back, I can say something that touches everybody. But for the most part, I was at Barclays Center yesterday with my son. My oldest son was 14, protesting, and we were talking. And there's a group of people around us. We created a circle, and literally thousands of people there. And I took the bullhorn. I didn't want to speak. I just wanted to just kind of be in the moment. But the whole point was to get Black faces in the forefront and Black voices heard at the forefront of this protest, which I think is really important, because there's literally about 70% of people out there that don't look like us that were at this protest. That's another conversation for another day. But while we were there, I said to some of the people around me, I said, listen, we understand the what of this moment, but I want to make sure we understand the why of this moment. It's okay to have the what figured out, but I feel like a lot of us figure out the what in our lives, but not the why. And what I mean by that is the what of this is George Floyd, but we're not here protesting, and we're not on this live just because of George Floyd. The why of this moment is that this has been happening. A knee has been on our necks, not just with George Floyd, but from the year 1619 to 2020. That's the why, that we live in a system that has constantly sought to subjugate us and to keep us back at every turn. There is no place in our society that we can turn and not see injustice towards Black people, Black and brown people in this country. So whatever it is that you do, we may not have all the answers. We're not going to have all the answers tonight. I don't know if we're ever going to have all the answers, but I think if we go after the why and we understand why we're doing something, even if it's on your job or whatever area of influence that you have, once you figure out the why of what you're doing, that will direct the steps that you take to bring about change. Make sure you got the why before the what.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Man, we appreciate you. We appreciate we appreciate you coming out tonight, man. And bro, we'll see you on the chat, man. And we're gonna have to do this again. I'm excited. Thank you so much.
Let's do this again.
Definitely. Let's go to Gregory Mellon.
I'm just me, myself, as I look over the last 2 months of how we got to where we are right now, in just 2 months of sitting home, not being inundated with work, in 2 months of us being initially so lonely and getting house party apps, and Facebook literally in the last 2 to 3 weeks created lives and group chats just for us to be in better proximity with each other, to have relationships. In 2 months of us just sitting back, relaxing, enjoying our relationships, 2 months after that, a revolution came in our country. And I'm happy that we're in a place mentally and emotionally. We may not be there all the way. There's certainly a distance that we have to go, but the evidence is in the pudding. 2 months of building relationships, 2 months of us being able to think, being able to process, us not being as stressed as we used to be, facilitated. And I'm praying it is one of the biggest changes in America. Can you imagine what we can do with just another not only more months, but actually understanding and implementing change within our own lives that actually impact how we operate as a people. I'm very excited about this moment.
Wow, that was powerful, Greg. And I just want to thank you for being out here, man, and being our psychologist and pulling us back sometimes when we need to be pulled back.
Psychologist.
And remind school psychologist and reminding us,
children,
and reminding us of who we are and what we need to do, and that we are strong Black men doing it up. So, Greg, we just want to thank you so much, man. We might have to turn this into a series. I'm just happy it happened. Thank you for pushing to make this happen. For some of us, we're skating around getting this off the ground. But I'm so happy that it happened. And everybody has your ats. We put it on the screen. How they can find you, Gregory Mellon, at Gregory Mellon on Instagram. Follow Greg. He's a great dude. He's doing great things. So, Greg, we love you, man, and we'll see you on the chat, bro.
Love you too, bro. Later.
Last but not least, man, this guy right here.
Well, first and foremost, I want to say that I was not drinking alcohol. This is, look, it says alcohol removed Merlot, right? Yeah, so there was no alcohol in that. But in all seriousness, I would say that our community really needs to focus a lot on money, right? Economic inclusion, but then also economic dominance, right? Social justice without economic justice is one hand clapping, right? So you need both. And we should not be afraid to talk about money, especially when it comes to speaking to government about it. Government funds so many things, and government regulations also direct certain things to certain people. So I say that we need to get further educated on what our ask is, so that we demand it and that we get it. And I'd also say that it's important to clearly distinguish pre-COVID and post-COVID. So when you're speaking with authority, whether that be your job, whether that be the government, whether that be whoever that was your superior, I don't even like using those terms, you should say, hey, before COVID, yeah, that was cool. Post-COVID, I really understand how fast you can move when you want to. So if I'm not a priority for you, then that is a problem, and I can rally up the troops as fast as I did before. So if you do not define who you are, you will allow other people to define you. When they define you, they'll use their own definition. So let's define ourselves as pre-COVID and post-COVID. So tomorrow, for those living in New York City, we are going into phase 2 of this coronavirus pandemic, but let it also be phase 2 of how you want to live and direct your life. So thank you so much. God bless you all. And Sam, Brandon, and Greg, I appreciate you,
Jeff, thank you, man. Appreciate you for this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, again, you got a chance to see our chat live. I cannot add or let you know how important it was for us to take this conversation outside of our phone chat and bring it out into the world. We've been talking about how we're able to share information amongst each other, right? To help each other grow, support each other, creating a system and a network. And we all have our own networks, right? This is not my only chat. Like I have 5,000 other chats that I'm a part of, but this is one of the core chats that I'm a part of, where we're talking about how can we make it better? How can we make it easier for people on the outside, on our community? And I'm excited that we were able to bring this conversation. Who's speaking? Who's speaking for us, right? Do we have leadership? Do we need leadership, right? How are we going to depend on our leaders? Do we sit back and wait for the leaders to make the decisions for us? And I think tonight's conversation helped us understand that it has to be a mixture of all of those things. But most importantly, you are the leader. You are the leader. The leadership starts with you. Don't wait for somebody else to be the leader. You be the leader. Be the leader in whatever you do. Dr. King said, if you are a janitor, be the best janitor possible. But I want to add to that. Be the best janitor possible, but also be the janitor that's speaking up for your people, that's speaking up for people at work, your department, right? Don't sit there and no one's talking about what's happening outside of your department or outside of work. You be the one to bring the conversation up. You be the one to say, hey, you know what? I think we should have a conversation about what X, Y, and Z that's happening in the world. And it's going to make people feel uncomfortable, but you have to be the leader. It starts with you. The conversation starts with you. So to answer the question that we've been asking all night, right? Who speaks for the black man? You speak for the black man. You speak for your dad, for your mom, for your sister, for your brother, for your sons. You are the person that has to speak for the black man, not anybody else. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you. On the bottom of our screen is our handles. All four of us, we're out here, public servants, community servants, men who really love people and really love God. And I just want to say thank you for watching what we're doing. This wasn't sponsored by any of our companies or corporations. This was just four brothers talking on Facebook tonight. So I just want to say thank you for hanging out with us for these 2 hours. My producer, thank you to our producer, my brother Elisha Pierre, who was backstage making sure that everything was secure and that was tight on board. Thank you for our other producer, Francois Jonti, for piecing everything together and making sure that we were able to communicate. Thank you for our creative producer, Joanne Pillard, for making sure that our flyer was tight and all the systems worked. We can't do this by ourselves. We have to have a community of folks who are there with us, who are there supporting us, who are there standing with us. So, and I just want to give a shout out to all the people from all the different networks that stayed for the full 2 hours and heard about our conversation and made it happen. We cannot do it without you. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, you are the ones that speak for me. You speak for Sam Pierre. You speak for Sam Pierre, and you keep speaking for Sam Pierre. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. There's no curfew tonight. Mayor de Blasio lifted it, so please enjoy this amazing, beautiful night. Thank you so much, everybody. God bless.